So Simple tutorial. Good morning students. Welcome to SST So Simple tutorial. Today we will revise the first lesson, the rise of nationalism in Europe. Students, if you have not subscribed the channel yet, please do it now. This gives motivation to make more videos for you. Okay, so let us begin. This is a painting made by a French artist named Frédéric Soriot in 1848. In fact, he made a series of four. This is one of them. He named them the dream of worldwide democratic and social republic. If you look at the picture carefully, you will find four things here. First, the procession. A long train of people moving towards the Statue of Liberty, carrying their national flag and wearing their national costume. Second is the Statue of Liberty. Liberty is being personified as a female figure. The statue is holding the Charter of Rights in one hand and the torch of enlightenment in the other. Third, the broken pieces of symbols of absolutist institutions. In the foreground, there are broken pieces of crowns and other symbols of monarchy representing the end of absolutist rule. And the fourth one is heaven. From there, gods, angels, and saints are gazing at the scene. It seems as if whatever is happening there, they have the approval of God. It seems as if they also want absolutism to go away and make ways for democracy. So the painting of Soriot symbolizes the end of absolutist institutions like monarchy and dictatorship and represents the coming in of ideas like liberty, republic, representative government, etc. The picture of Soriot students is rightly placed in the introduction since this lesson deals with many issues visualized by him. Before the emergence of the spirit of nationalism, Europe constituted a large number of multinational dynastic empires, for example, Habsburg Empire. But nationalism emerged as a force during the 19th century and brought sweeping political changes in Europe. The end result of these was the emergence of nation states. In this chapter, we will see the diverse processes through which nation states and nationalism came into being in 19th century Europe. Let us now begin the lesson with Unit 1, the French Revolution and the idea of the nation. The French Revolution in 1789 marked the age of revolutions in Europe. It paved the way to achieve bigger goals of national identity and national pride, which can be called nationalism. Recall what all happened after the representatives of the third state left the States General Meeting in protest of the voting system. Recall the tennis court oath. So this revolution proclaimed that it was the people who would make the nation and shape its destiny. From the very beginning, the French revolutionaries took various steps to unite the people of France. They took various steps to create a sense of collective identity amongst them, like introducing a new flag, introducing the idea of La Patrie and Les Citoyens, introducing a centralized administrative system, introducing uniform laws for all the citizens, introducing uniform systems of weights and measures. Even the regional dialects were discouraged and French was made one common language for the whole nation. The revolutionaries did not stop here. They further declared that it was the mission and the destiny of the French nation to liberate the people of Europe from despotism. That means they wanted to help other peoples of Europe to become nations. French Revolution had effect on other countries also. Students and educated middle class of some cities in Europe even set up Jacobins Club to spread the ideas of revolutionaries. Their activities prepared the way for the French armies into Holland, Belgium, Switzerland and Italy in the 1790s. Wherever went the French army's students, they carried the ideas of nationalism there. When Napoleon became emperor, he introduced many reforms in France. But see the beauty, he also introduced all those reforms in the territories that came under his control. One of the most important things that he gave to France was the civil code. France had been for a long time in need of a new system of law, one law that was just and uniform. Before that, France did not have a single set of laws. Laws consisted mainly of customs. They were exemptions, privileges, and special charters signed by the kings or feudal lords. Napoleon replaced these fragmented laws of pre-revolutionary France in accordance with the ideas of French Revolution. That is why this civil code of 1804 is also called Napoleonic Code. In this code, there was no place for any privileges based on birth. The code established equality before the law and secured the right to property. As I was just referring, this code was also exported to the regions under French control. But the same people who once paved the way for French army, who welcomed them as harbingers of liberty, turned hostile, because the administrative reforms introduced by Napoleon were good, but this did not change the fact that they were conquered people still living under the French rule. Administrative efficiency does not mean political freedom. They were also critical of increased taxation and censorship. Besides, forced conscription into the French army to conquer Europe made his rule unpopular. Okay, let us now go to the next unit, the making of nationalism in Europe. In the mid 18th century, there were no nation states in Europe. Germany and Italy, for example, were not the same Germany and Italy as we know them today. They were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons. The rulers had their autonomous territories. People of diverse groups lived there. They did not have a common culture. They did not share a common identity. For example, the Habsburg Empire, which ruled over Austria-Hungary. This empire consisted of many regions and people. In the Alpine region, the aristocracy was German-speaking. In the provinces of Lombardy and Venetia, people spoke Italian. In Hungary, half the people spoke Magyar and the rest other dialects. In Galicia region, the aristocracy spoke Polish. So promoting a sense of political unity among people in different regions with different languages and cultures was not easy. It was a challenging task. What bound these diverse group people together was common allegiance to the emperor, that's all. Let us now see the social and political composition of population in Europe in this period. Basically, there were two groups. First, the aristocracy and the second, the peasantry. Aristocracy was a dominant class, powerful class. They were mainly the owners of land, that is why landed aristocracy. They owned estates in the countryside and town houses. They used to speak French for purposes of diplomacy and high society. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. This group was, however, small. It was the peasantry who formed the majority. To the west, for example, France and Germany, the bulk of land was farmed by tenants and small owners. In Eastern and Central Europe, for example Russia, there were vast estates which were cultivated by the serfs. My dear students, you know that Industrial Revolution first came to England in the mid 18th century. Then it spread to other countries like France, Germany, etc. during the 19th century. The growth of industrialization now changed the social equation of Europe. There emerged two groups, working class and the middle class. The working class consisted of those working in the factories, and the middle class included industrialists, businessmen, and professionals like doctors, lawyers, etc. This middle class was educated and vocal against the aristocratic privileges. This class advocated equal rights and opportunities for all. This class was supporting democracy and the rule of law. In our discussion so far, why we finally landed into middle class? It is because these people are going to talk about national unity and take a lead in the formation of nation states. Thus, the group required to bring the change has appeared on the scene. This group will work as the agent of nationalism and bring unity among the people. Let us now see what did liberal nationalism stand for. Initially, liberalism presented itself as a philosophy of the rising middle class. It championed the cause of this class against the feudal aristocracy and absolute monarchy. For the new middle class, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. Freedom of individual means absence of political and social restraints. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. It stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges, a constitution, and representative government through parliament. You can relate these with the French Revolution because that was the first political experiment in liberal democracy. But their equality before law did not mean universal suffrage. They did not support voting rights for women. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and the abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. Actually, this reflects the aspirations of merchants and the manufacturing middle class, which supports free economy, free trade, and opposed state interference in the economy. According to them, the government should refrain from any interference with the economy and rather focus on securing individual rights to liberty and property. Economic liberalism students directly contributes to the growth of economic unification and nationalism. It results in the creation of a unified economic territory that allows the unhindered movement of goods, people, and capital. It stimulates mobility and expands the size of market. This can be understood from the example of Prussia. In 1834, a custom union called Zollverein was formed under the Prussian leadership. This was joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. It was seen as an important step in the unification of Germany as a free trade area. Let us now revise the next subtopic, a new conservatism after 1815. Students, Napoleon had badly mutilated the political map of Europe. To suit his convenience, he had torn away territories from some states and added them to some other states. So, after defeating Napoleon in 1815, the problem before the major European powers was how to redraw the map of Europe. So, they met in Vienna to settle this issue. Metternich became the host. Whatever was formally agreed between BAPR, Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, is called the Treaty of Vienna 1815. The aim of the treaty was to undo most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. I will read some important features of this treaty. 1. The Bourbon dynasty, which had been deposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. 2. France lost the territories it had annexed under Napoleon. 3. A series of states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. Thus, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. 4. Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers. Austria was given control of northern Italy. In the east, Russia was given part of Poland, while Prussia was given a part of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon and create a new conservative order in Europe. So finally, conservative regimes were set up in 1815. What was the nature of this regime? They were autocratic in nature. They did not tolerate criticism and dissent. They sought to curb activities that questioned the legitimacy of autocratic government. Most of them imposed censorship laws to control what was said in newspaper, book, plays and songs and reflected the idea of liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. Understood? Let us now discuss the revolutionaries. After the Treaty of Vienna, autocratic monarchies came to rule in different parts of Europe. The liberal nationalists went underground out of fear of repression. This period, therefore, witnessed the emergence of many secret societies to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. So, who were revolutionaries? Revolutionaries were the people who believed in opposing monarchical regimes. Their main objective was to fight for liberty and freedom. They saw the creation of nation states as an important part of their freedom struggle. An example of an Italian revolutionary, Giuseppe Mazzini, is mentioned in the book. As a young man of 24, he was sent into exile in 1831. for attempting a revolution in Liguria. The Ligurian region is in northwestern Italy. Mazzini subsequently founded two more underground societies. First, Young Italy in Marseille, and second, Young Europe in Bern. Mazzini believed that God had intended nations to be the natural units of mankind. So small states and kingdoms of Italy should be forged into a single unified republic. Monarchs should be dethroned and replaced by democratic republics. Metternich was aware of his organizational capabilities and the zeal with which Mazzini was working to achieve his goal. That is why he described him the most dangerous enemy of our social order. Let us now go to the next unit, the Age of Revolutions. This unit discusses the revolutions that took place in different regions of Europe between 1830 and 1848. First, we will discuss three. One that started in France, second in Belgium, and the third in Greece. The first upheaval took place in France. The French people took the path of revolution in July 1830 again. They were not happy with the autocratic rule of Charles X. So Charles was overthrown by the revolutionaries and he had to flee France. Louis Philippe was installed as a constitutional monarch. This incident is called July Revolution. This July Revolution then sparked an uprising in Brussels. Recall what happened to Belgium in the Treaty of Vienna. Belgium was made a part of Netherlands. So because of this uprising, Belgium separated from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. The third event is the Greek War of Independence. Greece had been a part of the Ottoman Empire since 15th century. The growth of revolutionary nationalism in Europe sparked off a struggle for independence amongst the Greeks in 1821. Greek struggle for independence got support from diverse quarters. In 1832, a Treaty of Constantinople was signed and Greece was recognized as an independent nation. Let us now revise the next topic, the Romantic imagination and national feeling. My dear students, art and poetry, stories and music also help express and shape nationalist feelings. That means culture also plays an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Romanticism was such a cultural movement during the early 19th century in Europe. This movement sought to develop a particular form of nationalist sentiment. It glorified folk art and vernacular language. The Romanticists generally criticized the glorification of reason and science. They focused more on emotions, intuition, and mystical feelings. Their effort was to create a sense of a shared collective heritage, a common cultural past as the basis of nation. Johann Gottfried Herder was one such romantic. He was a German philosopher. He claimed that true German culture was to be discovered among the common people. It was through folk songs, folk poetry, and folk dances that the true spirit of the nation was popularized. So, collecting and recording these forms of folk culture was essential to the project of nation building. Karol Kurpinski was another romanticist. He was a leading Polish musician and composer. He is an excellent example of how national feelings can be kept alive through music and dance. He contributed to the growth of nationalism in Poland through his opera. Grimm Brother is another example. They developed an interest in collecting old folk tales. They believed that folk tales were expressions of a pure and authentic German spirit. Eugene Delacroix was an important French romantic painter. You can see the painting named The Massacre at Chios. Through this painting, he depicts the incident when 20,000 Greeks were said to have been killed by the Turks on the island of Chios. Through his painting, he is trying to appeal to the emotions of the spectators and create a sympathy for the Greeks. Language also played an important role in developing nationalist sentiments. When Russia occupied Poland, the Polish language was forced out of schools and the Russian language was imposed everywhere. Following this, Polish language came to be used as a symbol of struggle against Russian dominance. Let me come to the revolution of 1848 in France. In 1848, the situation took a turn for the worst in France. There was widespread unemployment. Employment opportunities were slow to develop because of the emergence and spread of machine-made goods. There were food shortages and food prices soared high. So the people of Paris came out on the roads. Louis Philippe left the throne and ran away. People were not ready to continue with monarchy anymore. The National Assembly declared France a republic. All adult males above 21 got voting rights. The right to work was guaranteed. National workshops were set up to provide employment. Let us now see what is happening in German states. The events of 1848 in France triggered revolution in many other countries in Europe. The liberal middle class started to demand for constitution with national unification in Germany, Italy, Poland, etc., which had not become nation states yet. Let us focus on Germany. Germany was then a confederation of 39 states. The confederation consisted of the rulers of each state as its members. The King of Austria was made the president of confederation. Prussia was the first German state to face revolution. A large number of people, particularly middle class professionals, businessmen, etc., came together in the city of Frankfurt and decided to vote for an all German National Assembly. Elections were held in the month of March. On 18th May 1848, the parliament was convened in the church of St. Paul. 831 elected representatives participated in the deliberations. Then they drafted a constitution for a German nation, which was to be headed by a monarch subject to a parliament. After that, the deputies offered the crown of the German nation to Frederick Wilhelm IV, but he declined the offer. In the end, troops were called and the assembly was disbanded. So the Frankfurt Parliament that wanted to unite Germany in a democratic way failed. Let us now move to the next unit, the making of Germany and Italy. After 1848, a big change was observed in the politics of Europe. Nationalism was seen moving away from its association with democracy and revolution. Now, the conservatives started to use the feelings of nationalism to strengthen their power and to establish their political dominance over Europe. This can be seen in the way Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation states. We have seen that the crown was offered to Frederick Wilhelm IV before, but he had refused the offer. Had he accepted the offer, the political and national unity of Germany would have been achieved then only. But destiny had decided it at some time later. But things changed after his death in 1861, when William I became the King of Prussia. He was a true Prussian. He took upon himself the task of national unification. He believed that the destiny of Prussia depended upon her army. Without having a competent army, Prussia could not make Germany a nation. The second and most important character in this drama is Otto von Bismarck. William I appointed him the chief minister of Prussia in 1862. Bismarck knew very well that in order to achieve the great goal of unification, Prussia will have to fight wars. So he carried out the task of German unification with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. They made up a strategy and fought 3 wars over 3 years with Denmark, Austria and France, which finally students ended in Prussia's victory and completed the process of unification. On 18th January 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor. In the slide you can see the proclamation of the German Empire. The ceremony was held in the Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles. Let us now see the unification of Italy. Like Germany, Italy too had a long history of political fragmentation. Italy was divided into a large number of states under different rulers. The north was under Austrian Habsburgs. The central part was ruled by the Pope. The southern part, kingdom of both Sicilies, were under the domination of the Bourbon kings of Spain. Only the kingdom of Sardinia-Piedmont was ruled by an Italian princely state. In Italy, unification was not an easy task, as even Italian language had not acquired the common form. It had many local and regional variations. Let us now see the process of unification with Mazzini first. He was a great revolutionary. He was an ardent advocate of the necessity for Italian unification. He had formed a secret society called Young Italy to achieve his goals. The July Revolution of 1830 had its effect on Italy also. The patriots of Italian states had also revolted against their autocratic rulers, but the revolutionaries were crushed by the Austrian army under the guidance of Metternich. Mazzini also took part in that revolution. He was arrested and expelled to France. Mazzini believed that Austria was the greatest enemy of freedom and unity of Italy, so the unification of Italy could not be achieved without driving Austria out of Italy. The revolutions of 1848 had ignited nationalist sentiments throughout the Italian peninsula. There was widespread uprisings in several Italian cities that year, mostly by the professional class such as doctors, lawyers, shopkeepers as well as students. But all of these were crushed and the uprisings were unsuccessful. After the failure of both the uprisings, the mantle now fell on Sardinia Piedmont under its ruler King Victor Emmanuel II. Why him? Because he was the only Italian ruler. And also, by doing so, they were seeing the economic development of Italy and hence the political domination. Victor Emmanuel II then appointed Count Cavour as the chief minister in 1852. Cavour was one of the greatest statesmen and diplomats of the 19th century Europe. He secured an alliance with France and succeeded in defeating Austrian forces in 1859. Thus, he was successful in driving out the Austrians from the north. The third important personality is Garibaldi. He was instrumental in bringing the southern Italian states into the unification process. In May 1860, Garibaldi organized an army of volunteers called Red Shirts and set out on the conquest of Sicily and Naples. It was called the Expedition of the Thousands. He succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants there and defeated the army of the Sicily and drove out the Spanish rulers. Then he happily gave up all the conquered provinces in favor of Piedmont. Thus, in 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was declared king of the unified Italy. Rome was, however, incorporated into Italy sometime later in 1870. Let us now see what happened in England. Britain's case was unique. Why? Because it neither faced any revolution nor fought any war. It was the result of a long drawn out process. Many other European countries had a sense of nation and as such they struggled to bind themselves into a strong single nation. In contrast, there was no British nation prior to the 18th century. The primary identities of the people who inhabited the British Isles were ethnic ones such as the English, Scot, Welsh and Irish. All these groups had their own cultural and political traditions. Out of these groups, the English nation grew in wealth and power more than others because of trade and commerce, manufacturing, etc. So, they were able to extend their influence over the Welsh, Scot and Irish and form themselves into a single nation. After the Glorious Revolution of 1688, the British Parliament became more powerful. The House of Commons and the Prime Minister assumed more political control than that had been the case before. This parliament was the instrument through which the nation states came to be forged. If you see the case of other nations like Italy and Germany, kings and other leaders played an important role. So, this is also an important point how the formation of British nation was different from other nations. To begin with, there was a treaty of union between England and Scotland. Parliaments of both England and Scotland passed an act of union to ratify the treaty. This created a single kingdom with one parliament with effect from 1st of May 1707. The Treaty of Union specified the name of the new island state as United Kingdom of Great Britain, describing it as one kingdom. So, it was through the Act of Union 1707 between England and Scotland that resulted in the formation of United Kingdom of Great Britain. The new parliament was henceforth dominated by English members. They began to systematically suppress the Scotland's culture and political institutions. You know that England is basically a Protestant country. So the Catholic clans that inhabited the Scottish Highlands were repressed whenever they attempted to assert their independence. They were forbidden to speak their Gaelic language, and large numbers were forcibly driven out of their homeland. Let us now see how Ireland became a part of United Kingdom. Ireland was divided between Catholics and Protestants. The English helped the Protestants of Ireland to establish their dominance over the country, which was largely Catholic. The Catholics revolted against the British dominance, but they were suppressed. Wolfe Tone was an 18th century Irish rebel. He founded the United Irishmen with the goal to overthrow English rule. In 1798, he led a rebellion and attempted to take Dublin and the surrounding counties, but it was quickly suppressed and he was captured. After the failed revolt, Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom in 1801. Now, a new British nation was forged through the propagation of dominant English culture. Let us now go to the next unit, visualizing the nation. See, it is difficult to represent an abstract idea. So it is difficult to represent a nation too. Artists in the 18th and 19th century found a way by personifying a nation. That means they represented a nation as if it were a person. Nations were portrayed as female figures. The female form that was chosen to personify the nation did not stand for any women in real life. They were just meant to give an abstract idea a concrete form. In the case of India, we know that our country was identified through the image of Bharat Mata, and so was the case in Europe also. In France, she was called Marianne, which is a popular Christian name. Her characteristics were drawn from those of liberty and republic, the red cap, the tricolor, the cockade. Statues of Marianne were erected in public squares to remind the people of the national symbol of unity and to persuade them to identify with it. Marianne images were marked on the coins and stamps. In Germany, she was called Germania. It is very easy to identify Germania. She wears a crown of oak leaves as the German oak stands for heroism. The slide shows the painting of Germania on a cotton banner as it was to be hanged from the ceiling of the Church of St. Paul where the Frankfurt Parliament was convened in 1848. You can see the paintings of Germania hanging in the church. Let us now revise the last topic, nationalism and imperialism. Here we will discuss the conflict that took place in the region called Balkans. The Balkan is a region in the southeastern Europe between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea. It comprised of the modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia and Montenegro. The inhabitants of the Balkans were called Slavs. A large number of Balkans were under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire was a vast dynastic empire comprising a great mixture of race, religion and language. The ruling class was Turkish, whereas many of the subject people were either Jews or Christians. Nationalist struggles began to spread in the region because of two reasons. First, weakening of the Ottoman Empire. All through the 19th century, the Ottoman Empire tried to strengthen itself through modernization and internal reforms, but it did not achieve any success. So one by one, its European subject nationalities broke away from its control and declared independence. The second reason was the spread of romantic nationalisms in the Balkans. The Balkan people started claims for their independence. They used history to prove that they had once been independent, but had subsequently been subjugated by foreign powers. If you can recall, Greece had declared independence from the same Ottoman Empire. Hence, different groups of people began to struggle to win back their long-lost independence. As the different Slavic nations struggled to define their identity and independence, the Balkan area became an area of intense conflict. There were again two reasons for this. One, the Balkan states were fiercely jealous of each other and each of them wanted to gain more territory at the expense of others. Two, the big powers like Russia, Germany, England and Austria entered in the scene of Balkans and complicated the issue. They took advantage of the rift between these Balkan countries to materialize their imperialistic aims. They not only tried to extend their control over other countries but also countered the hold of other powers over these Balkan countries. You can well understand the imperialistic tendency of these powers here. you can see how the feeling of nationalism in the Balkan countries aligning with the imperialism of big powers. That is why the title of lesson Nationalism and Imperialism. This led to a series of wars in the Balkan region and finally it led to the First World War. Thereafter, it had an effect on the rest of world too. Many countries in the world which had been colonized by the European powers in the 19th century began to oppose imperial domination. Say for example India, we were colonized by the British. We fought for our independence. Similarly, in all other countries, anti-imperial movements developed. All of them struggled to form independent nation states. All of them were inspired by a sense of collective national unity, forged in confrontation with imperialism. But the idea of nationalism that developed in these countries were not the same as that had developed in Europe. Everywhere, people developed their own specific variety of nationalism. This finishes your revision. Let me stop here now. Links of one shot revision of other chapters are given below in the description. Don't waste time in searching. Click those links and access to the required video directly. In the next class, we will revise some other lesson. Till then, enjoy reading and stay connected. Thank you.